Howdy everyone, welcome to Hex Center. Today we're going to do something a little extra special and we're going to take a look at the changes that have occurred from alpha to arena. We're going to take a snapshot of what the alpha was like and then we're going to compare it to the differences that we're seeing in today's arena based hex. I think it's really good to appreciate the differences that normally have occurred over time. We don't often take time to fully appreciate the length and breadth that our game has changed since its alpha release and just after we switched over from our alpha client into our closed beta client, and then from the beginnings of our closed beta client all the way to our arena client. I believe that taking a look at the differences between alpha and present day is going to give us a fantastic appreciation of where we are and hype us up for where we're going to go with Hex. But first, let's go ahead and take a look at where we came from. So what we're seeing now happens to be the original landing screen as soon as you logged in the Hex. So it was very simple. Across the top, we had a home button, a Proving Grounds button, an area for our social, we had no mail, no auction house, and we had our deck builder. So the actual button for deck building was down in the middle of the lower portion of the screen. Now, the Proving Grounds is a similar setup to what we have present day, but it is much more empty and it didn't have near the amount of options for us to be able to go and play. Now, after we did get into a game, we also had a very different coin dropping screen. It actually showed something more like a pane, like a table that we would fall down on, and it showed a lot more prominence of the banners that were expected to come in. I like our current coin animation, which a good part of that was saved going forward, but for our older coin animation, I think this did a really good job still. Now, our play environment is similar for the basic board, but there are a lot of elements that are very different. So the cards have been drastically updated for what the art is. The background art's changed, the symbol arts have changed. A lot of the basic arts may still be the same, but the trimmings around them have drastically been upgraded. So the upper left hand and the lower left hand corners tell you a lot more information now and provide a lot more presence on the board state than they did previously. One of the next big changes that occurred was actually in the deck builder. And this original deck builder was not a bad deck builder. It was extremely functional. And being able to see more of your cards laid out at any particular point was a very good plus. But there were a lot of parts that are not the most user-friendly to them. The cards generally tended to be fairly small unless you happen to be able to zoom in or get really close to the screen. It wasn't quite as pretty as it could have been, and the button options were not as easy to understand. Plus also the circle view when it came to the parts of equipment that weren't even implemented yet just didn't feel the most complete in the world. In addition to that, we also had a much simpler filtering system on whether or not we could do card types or just shards. One other thing that was a big change was the gemming system. The gemming system is much improved and much easier to utilize now. Though the photo is a little bit on the grainy side, the tooltips were drastically updated. The interface was made to where it was much easier to see the different text related to each of the gems. And even at this point not all the gems were working correctly and available, and that made it difficult to test all the full permutations. One of the other things that I think is underrated but very important was actually the zoom in effect on one's individual game pieces of the cards. We can already see here on the Corrupted Afterlife that the borders were kind of snazzy, but they didn't feel digital. It felt more like it was replicating paper at that point. It really wasn't. They had a lot of shiny elements added to there, but the biggest thing is that we see at this point a partial realization, not a full realization yet, but a partial realization that there was so much more that could be done with these cards. And I like the general look of it if I was playing a paper TCG. I do understand that they decided to go a different direction with the art for each of the different cards. Now, it can't be underestimated. A lot of things have changed since the alpha client. The alpha client did not have all the full features. It was in an older version of Unity, which didn't have the capacity to do the same type of particle effects that we see in present day. But it was doing a really good job. The cards and arts themselves were beautiful. You could get some partial particle effects. It was pretty snappy in its play on how you could quickly pull from the deck to your hand, but it didn't do animations quite near so well as I think what our community has been used to. Another thing that I would mention is that the alpha was very fun, but it was also very incomplete. We didn't have certain types of features like the auction house, a really important feature for being able to trade value between players. Our mail system wasn't near as robust. We didn't have the CODs. We barely, when testing alpha, we didn't have full draft functions yet. That wasn't until the first part of closed beta that we got the real aspects of draft. In addition to that, Kickstarter rewards, the first set of them, went out at the very beginning of closed beta. And it also had the only account wipe ever done, which to clear out the old alpha test sets with the clean accounts and have never been wiped going forward. In addition, the original alpha client had a limited set of things you could do. At first, it essentially just had proving grounds, versus matches, and AI matches. But since then, we ended up getting drafts, limited 128-mans, 256-man tournaments, and then in addition to that, we ended up having the improved AI for the proving grounds, we got the starter trials, and we have our big mamma jam right now, the arena. So let's go ahead, let's jump into Hex, and definitely do a quick compare-contrast on the differences between each of those types of screens. See here that we have the current loading screen for Hex. So this is the first screen that we come into when just logging in. We still have the upper buttons that show where each of our functions are, but we have more of our functions available now. Our card manager has been vastly improved. We have our auction house, and then one of the other things that's been added has been the in-game store, where now we're able to get access to our set 1, set 2 booster packs, the starters, as well as alternate art commons that you can actually end up getting with gold. In addition, we also have a wonderful look at the early side of Entrath, as well as an additional entrance into the arena. Let's go ahead and take a quick look at the standard game board with a quick little AI look. So with the AI, we have a much improved coin flip that instead of it falling onto just a random board, actually falls onto our playing game board. We have smooth, wonderful transitions with our champions, and our champions have a much greater board presence. They have an expanded area where we can see different icons being utilized for showing us their faction, information about their cards, charge powers and abilities, and an updated wheel for the time. In addition, we'll also see, if we're testing PvE decks, any of our equipment now attached over here to the side for our champion portrait. With the addition of sleeves, we also have different tops for our decks, and the backs of our sleeves have also been vastly improved. Instead of having just a straight line of cards, we now actually have something that represents more of cards kind of being held in one's hand. And if one remembers from back in the early days, there was a significant pass priority issue that has been sped up and greatly improved how that is handled and how it is resolved. Pass priority issues do sometimes crop up in the PvE, but it has been significantly improved for PvP matches when it matters most specifically. So beforehand, the center portion of this wheel was utilized for understanding what phase it is. That has been moved over here to where the timer goes, and this will show us using these icons what phases we're in. As you can see, zooming into our card here, we have a much cleaner zoom. We have the abilities brought out here to the side. It is a much cleaner look. It zooms in. It doesn't have any artificial boxing or facing that needs to be done. It brings it right up, nice, crisp, easy to see. We have a great improvement to the interface for being able to go into practice AI games as well as proving grounds games with other players. We have the installation of a challenge button right next to the names on the available players list, the ability to play a random AI champion, as well as being able to play a random opposing champion or a random opposing player as well. The tournament section has been fleshed out much more significantly as well. We have a list of all of the open types of tournaments that are available. You can see how many people are in queue. Running into a queue is just as easy as a few clicks of a button. We do have some improvements on immediately listing how we want to pay for entering into a tournament, but we do know that we can click down here for its general cost and for its use of the platinum. Our social feature has been expanded as well. We have the ability to jump into our friends list, and we also have a much more robust mail feature, so we can keep track of our inbox, what's been sent, as well as the ability to add items, cards, and currency onto our mail as well. Our inventory is also much more robust. We have a way to finally start being able to filter out different items, a search function added into our inventory, as well as the ability to click across each of the different panes as well. You can right click on any particular equipment. It's going to show us the card associated with the equipment, and it's going to show us the equipment itself. This is another addition to the zoom feature, which is really valuable when you're exploring and trying to begin your brewing for your different types of decks. This is also the temporary holding station for our mercenaries. We don't have a lot of proper information on mercenaries yet. We only have what has been released in various screenshots, but hopefully we will be seeing these guys entered in soon. The auction house is always a point of contention. Our players always want the auction house to be better, but the auction house itself has come a pretty good ways. Its interface has been cleaned up quite a bit from its first implementations, and we have a lot more organization on what might be going on at any particular point. It's not too terrible to be able to go in and add different cards. We could use a little bit more ability to list multiple types of cards, but every single card is its own individual. Even though we may have a single listing of a stack of cards here, every one of the cards that we go into and check is its own card somewhere. The store is another really great improvement. The ability to jump on and buy platinum, the ability to go in and roll your chests is a really fun and awesome function. To just take, drag and drop, we get this spiffy animation as it pops up from the well. We throw our gold in, we get this slot machine function going on, and then sometimes you get fantastic rewards. Sometimes you get great upgrades, and the holy grail is upgrading to a primal. And on top of that, after you roll a primal, you get a free roll. And you never know what you're going to get on your primal. Sometimes you'll get something really awesome. This is a great example. This case, we got super lucky. We got 5,000 gold, and we got the Spite Blade. This is going to be another mercenary that we'll be able to use in our PvE experience. But I think the biggest and most prominent feature that is worth noting is that we now have the Frostring Arena. The Frostring Arena is a beautiful interface. We have the panning picture of the Frostring in the background. We have the Versus setup, the coin featured prominently. You can withdraw immediately or save and quit at any time in the arena between fights. We have a gauge on how far we've made it into the arena. We have these great portraits done for each of the champions, our legendary PvP champions, as well as the PvE AI champions. We got a good check on how many rewards we've earned so far. On top of that, it also has a super special board state for when you jump in and try to take on the new champions. All in all, we've had some vast improvements from the alpha, and not just from the difference between the grainy footage or the grainy photos at which we have. The play experience is much smoother. The animations are greatly improved. the quality of life features have really changed the scope of the game. It is much more like a video game now, where beforehand we knew that this was a fantastically designed card game and the interface was better than anything else previously on the market. Since it's been evolving, we've seen it take on and understand that the use of video game mechanics, particle effects, have been brought in and transformed the core experience into not just being a TCG MMO, but an MMO TCG. We're getting the MMO effects and abilities being slotted in. And though we may not get everything we want immediately, and some of it's going to be taking more development, when we take a look at Alpha compared to what we have now, we've come quite a long way. As always, I want to thank y'all for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button below. Be sure that you follow us on Twitter as well as Twitch for when we do our streams. We do streams Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays, and sometimes Saturdays. We'll also do arena runs on Saturdays while the Arena Run League is available. Thanks for coming to us through 5 Shards today as well. We have a lot of great articles up there on the site and a lot of fantastic information that you can't find anywhere else. But as always, thanks for watching. I'm Mocog, and this is Hex Center.